This is the What's Next Teacher Podcast with your host, Dr. Julie Warner.
Here you'll hear from former teachers who have left the classroom for thriving careers in and outside of education to help you picture yourself on the other side and land the job of your dreams.
If you're feeling confused about what to do next, stuck, or fearful about paying the bills, What's Next Teacher has your back.
Now here's your host, Dr. Julie Warner.
Hey everyone, welcome to the What's Next Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Julie Warner. I had asked a question on Instagram recently about what was the number one blocker keeping you from making that career transition out of teaching. If you had a magic wand, you could wave it and just remove that number one obstacle. What would it be? And a number of you said confidence. And I totally understand this. It feels like we're not prepared. We don't have the credentials. We don't have the experience. We don't have the right education. And we hesitate to apply for jobs as transitioning teachers, thinking that we're going to be laughed out of there. Or if we get the job by some miracle, we are going to be found out as an imposter, like you're going to pull your mask off and, underneath the data scientist or sales consultant or medical imaging specialist, there's a teacher underneath there. It's silly. It's really, really silly. And yet it's a huge problem and it keeps us from going after what we want in life. Part of this, I think, does come down to being able to feel the fear and doing it anyway. If you are afraid that someone's going to throw your resume away or rip it into a million pieces when you apply for a job outside of teaching, then what? Then what? What are you going to feel? What are you how are you going to be affected by that? Typically, if you can follow through the story all the way to the end, you'll see that it's not that big of a deal, that thing that you're afraid of. And that can help give you the confidence to put yourself out there. I used to what if myself to death. What if this happens? What if that happens? It was a lot of catastrophizing, some good old-fashioned hypervigilance. We human beings want to keep ourselves safe, right? And what I finally realized was that, and part of this comes with age, right? The older we get and look back on the things that we wanted so badly that we didn't get. I'm starting to sound like a Garth Brooks song, but those near misses, those failures, those stumbling blocks, those were a blessing. Think back in your life of all the things that you wanted so badly and we didn't get them. Those are the things that I look back on and I think this is the utility of letting go. This is why you don't worry. This is why you don't control. Easier said than done, right? But when you can stay in that mindset of just allowing, and that means, putting ourselves out there, doing what we want to do, pursuing what we want to pursue, and then letting go, it's going to work out in the end. Maybe not in the way that we wanted, maybe not the way we envisioned, but I challenge you to do that exercise. Think of the last 3 things that you just ached over. You wanted it so badly and didn't get it. And what came in its place? Probably something a whole lot better. I think it's really human to have a touch of imposter syndrome, or to feel a lack of self-confidence, or to feel a little bit of fear. But I want to share with you some of the insights that I've garnered over the past decade or so in thinking a lot about this issue. And in coaching my clients, I have sat down very intentionally with people that I admire, people that have accomplished things that I want to accomplish or that I think are really cool. And I ask folks, can you just tell me about your career pathway? What what all have you done, and how did you get here, and what led you to this position? And what I've heard 9 times out of 10 is that they never saw themselves doing this thing, that they kind of ended up there by accident, or there was a fortuitous incident where a job opportunity popped up and they grabbed it. And so that's all to say that you don't have to follow a linear path either. I think this is really tough for us to understand because we're in the education space. What do? We come up with curriculum to prepare you to get a degree or a certification or to graduate, right? And that's what allows you to be qualified. And we think that that's the way it is. We think that because we're entrenched in this particular context and that's the way things are done, that's the way that things are done more broadly. And it's just not. And increasingly, it is less so than ever before. I'm sure you've seen that higher ed is sort of imploding right now. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And I won't go into them now because I get real heated. But let me catch myself before I go on a rant right now. And then I'll have to edit this out. And that's just more work for me. So anyway, I do think that there's a real mismatch between 21st century careers and the kinds of skills and experience and education that you need to thrive in those, and the physical limitations of higher education and just the way that it's structured. A 4-year degree is becoming more and more obsolete. And I think that employers are recognizing that, particularly if you are in the tech space, as I am. They're not as worried about what you've done or what you've studied because the skills that are needed are learned best on the job. They really want to see if you can do what they need you to do more than if you've had education in a particular area. So I hope that that buoys your confidence just a bit. I would also say that as teachers, our confidence takes a hit pretty much daily. If you're in a context where you're using scripted curriculum, for example, or you're using somebody else's lesson plans against your better judgment, sometimes that's a requirement, right? Particularly in a PLC. If you're in one of those kinds of contexts, that can really zap your self-esteem. It's a hit to your professionalism. It is sending you the message that you can't do your job. There's no art in that. There's no professional decision making in implementing scripted curriculum. There's no you there. You're being erased as a professional in a lot of ways. That just is not going to help your confidence. One thing I wanted to share with you was what constituted a sort of light bulb moment for me, which was I read the statistic that women won't apply for jobs unless they hit 100% of the qualifications. They're checking every single box in that job posting. While on the other hand, men will apply if they meet 60%. That lit a fire under me for some reason. I thought, if men can have the audacity to apply for whatever job that they're not even qualified for, then I can too. And I really started looking at this as more of, maybe they'll see something they liked. I'm not going to spend a ton of time applying for a position as an astronaut or a professional football player or a harmonica instrumentalist, because I'm definitely not going to be chosen for that. But things where I am meeting 30, 40, 50, 60% of the qualifications that they're looking for, I will apply. And I've gotten stretch positions. I've gotten positions that I otherwise would have never seen myself doing, but because I did have that confidence to press submit, I got it. And if you go back and listen to my episode about dealing with rejection, I shared a bit there too about putting yourself out there and how to kind of think about rejection. And one thing that I shared in that episode is that there have been a number of times where I raised my hand to do something, and then I found out later on that it was only given to me because I was the only one that applied. So you never really know what's going on behind the scenes. So you might as well take a chance. It's not going to hurt anything to apply for a job that you want, that you don't feel confident about your shot at. I also started looking at this endeavor of career change as a challenge. I'm sure that most of my listeners are familiar with Carol Dweck and this notion of the growth mindset. Where do we see ourselves as kind of fixed and immutable? And where do we think deep down we have the ability to grow and change? This should be one of those areas. For me, it's been a continual focus on growing and changing, becoming a better person, stepping into my truth, what I want to do in life without the noise, without considering what other people are going to think or feel about it. It's not their business. And to do that, you really have to have that mindset shift. So if I see a job that I want, I'm going to put myself out there, not even just to get the job, but so that I can feel that fear and do it anyway. And eventually, I'll tell you, you'll grow a thicker skin, and it won't bother you to think that a hiring manager is going to reject you. Who cares? Or that you're going to get in an interview and you're not going to know the answer to a question.
Educators, you've given so much. You deserve to feel respected, fulfilled, and supported. And you're more marketable than you know. Let's find the right fit for you for the next phase of your career.
Visit whatsnextteacher.com for one-on-one career coaching, job application materials, unteacherizing your resume, interview preparation, negotiation assistance, and Julie's course, the 21-day Career Transition Challenge.
And now, back to the show.
It's not the end of the world. You just need to be prepared. And once you feel prepared, that's what's going to really help you to gain that confidence. And that's what I'll say is really one of the keys here, is to do all the preparation that you can, whether it's to understand what the organization does backwards and forwards, or to have had an informational interview, a casual coffee with someone that works in the organization to learn about the culture, to learn about the goals and the mission. You also want to make sure you're on top of your resume and interview bank. If you work with me, you know that I propose that the best way to handle your job search is to create a resume bank and an interview bank. And this is just a way to have a running list of things that you've done, accomplishments, metrics, all the data, all the stories, of everything that you've done that you can speak to in an interview, which is to capture in the STAR format: situation, task, action, result, STAR. Capture in that STAR format all the major things that you've done. It's sort of a way to put a narrative, to narrativize your resume. So you'll have that bank of stories. Once you've got that stuff written out, that helps your confidence so much. You've got this running list in front of you of all this great stuff that you've done and evidence of all of your amazing skills, and that's going to help you out a whole bunch. Just a couple more tips. Talking to people for me was one of the main confidence builders. I talk to people about a couple of things when I get a chance to sit down for coffee. I will ask people, what was your career trajectory like? What led you to this position that you have now? And when you hear people having had these more circuitous pathways toward whatever they're doing now, that's a huge confidence builder. You can see yourself in these stories. And then, second of all, ask people about how to gain confidence. When I have done that, like I'll ask somebody, well, how did you have the confidence to do X, Y, and Z? And people will tell you in the highest levels of whatever organization that you can sit down with somebody, they'll tell you that they've got imposter syndrome. They'll tell you flat out that they lack confidence. They'll tell you that they're nervous many times a day on the job. And that helped me too. That helped me to see that the lack of confidence is not a reason to not pursue something, because it's so common. There are other people all around me that are feeling the fear and doing it anyway. But you truly are in control here. You can't change careers without taking action. And that action has to be taken by you. Nobody's going to come and discover you as the next big whatever and pluck you out of your position. You have to do this stuff, right? And that's both a blessing and a curse, because it's a lot of work, but it's also a blessing when you are in control and you really own that and know that you have the ability to change this thing. It's just going to be a matter of getting the hang of it. For me, it was both applying over and over again, and I still do this. If I see something interesting, I'm going to apply because I want to see what will happen. But in general, it's just about getting the hang of it. It's about knowing what to expect. I have been through so many interviews now and coached so many clients through interviews that I know how these things work. Most of them are pretty straightforward. And resume writing, after you look at so many resumes and talk to people about yours, you will understand the function of the resume. And if you work with me, I'm going to tell you, you better understand the function of the resume. If you think it's a chronological history of your job roles that you've held, we need to talk. This thing should be a sales document that sells you as the solution to the hiring manager's problems. I'm just going to keep saying that in every episode. This is going to help you. This will help you. But yeah, it's just about getting the hang of it. I think over time, once you really put yourself out there over and over again, it builds your confidence. If you're getting rejections or hearing crickets, if you can think about it like, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm overseeing a hiring effort right now, and we had over 700 applicants. So think about that. Is a rejection of any one of those people going to mean something about them personally? No. They're all highly qualified. I just only had 7 positions to fill. So you got to think about things like that. Just become a little bit more detached personally from the outcome, as I was saying at the top of this pod. That's going to help you a lot. And then finally, find a trusted confidant, find a mentor. I have a whole slew of mentors. Just like I'm not good at everything, but I have my things that I am really good at. No one can be everything for you as a mentor. And so you want to find somebody that you can ask questions about those different problem areas for you. I have my big life decisions mentor, and this is somebody that I consult if I am thinking through something really life-changing. I've had a few of those events recently, and it's just invaluable to bounce ideas off of someone and also to sort of take it off of your shoulders and let somebody else carry it for a minute. Let them think about the question that you've got and to share that burden with you. It's really such a beautiful thing for both parties. But yeah, I've got my mentors in all different areas, so don't think that you need to find like one one like guru and to follow they're going to have all the answers for you to follow. No. Doesn't work that way, but I do highly recommend coming up with that sort of panel of trusted advisors. I think it's really, really useful. But that's all for this week. I hope that some of my perspective proves useful to you in this arena. If you are having issues with self-confidence, you need a confidence boost, I am available for consulting with you. And I am also offering a few workshops coming up in the near future, so keep your eyes peeled. I think anytime that you can participate in these kinds of workshops with me, any kind of professional development with career changers, that's going to help boost your confidence a lot too, because you're going to feel more prepared. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at What's Next Teacher on all social media platforms. Love hearing from you guys, and I love to understand what issues you're facing and hearing anything you want me to talk about in the future. So please give me questions, give me podcast ideas. I'm happy to treat any of this stuff for you. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review.
To catch all the latest from Julie, check out whatsnextteacher.com or follow up on social media at What's Next Teacher across all platforms.
Thanks again, and see you next time.